I'm Elex Michaelson. The issue is racist rant. Leaked audio of a back and forth between LA City Council members unleashes a national wave of outrage and a reshaping of LA politics. With us in studio, Gustavo Arellano of the LA Times, who helped to break this story, and LZ Granderson, who wrote movingly about the power dynamics at play behind the scenes. Then, the issue is the race for California Attorney General. With us, Republican candidate Nathan Hochman. Finally, the issue is President Biden in California. See what happened when I tried to talk with him. As The Issue Is starts right now.
Broadcasting across California, you're watching The Issue Is.
And welcome to The Issue Is. We got quite a group on what is a historic week in California politics after the LA Times and Knock LA posted audio of a private meeting between three members of the LA City Council and a labor leader. The city was shaken to its core. In the meeting about redistricting from last October, the group used racist language against blacks, whites, Latinos, Koreans, Armenians, Jews, gay people, just to name a few groups. At the time of this recording, Council President Nury Martinez is off the council with pressure on council members Kevin De Leon and Gil Cedillo to step down. Gustavo Arellano is part of the team that broke the story for the LA Times. He has written about it extensively and talked about it on the Times podcast as well. LZ Granderson is also a columnist for the LA Times, among his 50 other jobs. He has also written poignantly about this story. I really love both of your columns this week, which people can look at latimes.com. Gentlemen, welcome. Great to have both of you on set as well. Gustavo, let's start with you because you were part of this team that broke this story. What's the backstory here? Where did this recording come from? And what was the motivation to release it now, a year later?
A month ago, this recording pops up on Reddit with this cryptic remark saying, like, you hear how, paraphrase to how politics are, especially with labor. Then you actually hear the audio. Labor is corrupt. Labor is wrong. Then it gets taken down. Then about last week, an anonymous Twitter account pops up, tweets it out to some folks around, around Southern California, but my colleague David Zanziner. So then they get the audio. Sunday morning, I'm about to go into the shower. They asked me, hey, can you hear some audio, the Spanish bits, just because we know there's some bad things going. I'm like, oh, God, I got to put on my clothes. And my entire Sunday was just, I had to go get brunch at one point. But in terms of who leaked it, that is a big mystery. I personally think it is someone that got disillusioned with labor. And Los Angeles Magazine actually had this fascinating theory that it was council member running for council, Hugo Soto Martinez, who has had issues with the LA Labor Fed. Of course, he completely denied it. But that's what I'm hearing, that it was someone within labor that wanted to embarrass LA Labor Fed President Ron Herrera, just started to record conversations here and there. They did not expect something like this. Like, the target was Ron. It wasn't Nury Martinez, Gil Cedillo, and Kevin De Leon. They're just collateral damage. But why now? Once they got the audio, when are we going to release it? When is it going to be the most effective? October surprise.
Wow, and right before the election, and how crazy is it to think that Ron Herrera was the focus of all this and not the council members as well? Because this conversation happened at a labor building, which makes sense that there might be other people there from labor that were listening into this conversation.
Yeah, if you know labor, the battles between labor, the progressive wing, the radical wing, the conservative wing, and the trade wing, it's House of Dragons. It's House of Dragons meets Games of Thrones meets whatever the prequel with Jon Snow is going to be. It is bad, man.
LZ, I'm curious for your sort of initial reaction to this, because we know in Los Angeles there has been this history of brown versus black political battles over the years, and this kind of takes it to a new level.
Well, my first question is, did you ever get that shower in?
Yes, I did.
Okay, good. It's not just in politics. It's in various aspects of life where you have minority groups fighting for power within a municipality, and they tend to infight as opposed to look at being a coalition. With that being said, my initial reaction was, this is awful. And being quite honest with you, I'm still really, really sad. I was at the Lakers game the other day and was just kind of looking around like going, who would say that about this beautiful city with this wonderful diversity? Isn't this the goal? And yet, you take one step away from the spotlight and into the shadows and you see a lot of the ugliness you would see in other parts of the city where perhaps that's not the goal.
Yeah. And not to excuse any of it, but like if there was an obsession with one group, you'd say like, okay, you're just your run-of-the-mill racist, whatever. But she and others just fired off on so many groups. Like, as I was listening to the audio.
Groups that they've worked with, by the way.
Yeah. As we're all listening to the audio, you're like, oh my gosh, really? Oh my God. Like, it just got worse and worse and worse.
Yeah, and LZ, in your column, you reference one of my favorite shows, which is Hamilton. One of my favorite songs from Hamilton, which is The Room Where It Happens, where Aaron Burr is desperate to get behind closed doors into the room where it happens and political power is distributed. Here's a clip from Disney+. All right, I wish we could just play Hamilton all day, but it turns out when it comes to Los Angeles, you may not want to be in the room where it happens. I mean, what does this say about what that room looks like?
Well, it says a lot, and I don't think there are a lot of people left in society, at least not in American society, that's totally shocked that backroom deals and some negativity and vulgarness are coming out of backroom meetings like this, the room where it happens, right? The language, I think, is what's really shocking us, and how people talked about people shocked us. But the purpose, I don't think necessarily shocked us. And the reason why I chose to use that particular song was, one, to talk about the room where it happens, right? That was a room in which political dealings were trying to unfold. But the other reason why I did it was because of Aaron Burr. One of the first things he says to Hamilton is, talk less, smile more. Don't let them know what you're for or what you're against, right? Is that not Kevin DeLeon? Who was in this room where it was happening, not saying the awful things, right, that Martinez is saying, but appears to be
even had that grievance, the wanting, like, I want more, and why don't people acknowledge me?
Exactly.
That's
so I chose that
one.
For a very specific reason, because I thought he reminded me of Aaron Burr in the sense of, he may not even agree. And when you look at all the things that he's done in his career, there's a lot of progressiveness there that makes you wonder, does he believe all the things that she was saying? But it doesn't matter because he didn't come out against it.
He didn't come out against it. Do you think that this puts Latinos in a worse position going forward? In terms of playing into stereotypes that that maybe white people, black people, other people think, is this what they're saying about us behind closed doors?
What have we been talking about in California for the past 25 years from the conservative side? Mexicans are taking over. Mexicans, when they're in charge, they're going to start quashing other groups. Mexicans, when they're in charge, they're just not only going to do it for themselves. And here you have three of the most powerful politicians, period, in Southern California talking exactly like that. It is our responsibility as Latinos, especially Latino leaders, and they've been doing that. I'll say that much. They've been doing that to step up and say, yes, this is part of what we are. We're working at it. We have to fight it, but we cannot fight it without, frankly, getting condemnation from other people and then ourselves reflecting and fixing it. And
that's the part, not to cut you off, but that's the part that really hurts, because there is a legitimate gripe, which is the reason why I wrote the column. The representation of power, not just in Los Angeles, but in the country, isn't just. And the Democratic Party, which likes to tout itself as being the party of the, people of color and inclusion and et cetera, they've been somewhat slothful in addressing that issue. But if you look across the nation, this isn't just a Los Angeles story. These are two of the most powerful, or three of the most powerful Latinos in the country when you think about the economic power of California and Los Angeles. So I put this on the same level as if you were to hear a congressperson speak out of turn like that. And I think we need to be thinking about this in that way.
So, and one of the key issues that they were talking about was redistricting, right? This idea of who gets to vote for who where. In California right now, on statewide elections, we have an independent redistricting panel. So it's not politicians drawing the lines. But in Los Angeles right now, it is. And we talked with Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson this week on Fox 11 Los Angeles when he joined us. And he says that changes are coming when it comes to redistricting after this. Take a listen.
I think we were headed towards redistricting reform with or without this scandal because the last process left us such a bad taste in everyone's mouth, even without knowing about this tape. I think we'll absolutely have it now.
So how do you think, LZ, city politics, state politics changes after this?
Well, this is a good first step. Of course, you have to then ask yourself, well, then who's the independent committee, right? Like, you can do this until you're blue in the face. But this is a good step in knowing that we need to get this out of elected officials' hands, right? I think, secondly, what I would like to see is a statewide conversation, because this issue, as I wrote about, is only going to continue to escalate. And there are moments when you listen to the audio, again, going back to Kevin DeLeon, who specifically says, you know, we don't have to worry about the Trumpers supporters in Southern California, but the white liberals and the LA Times, people like us, right? So what they're sensing and what he is saying is that this has been an issue for both liberals as well as Republicans. Nothing's changed in terms of demographics, except there's going to continue to be movement there, and we need to have a mature adult conversation. And I would like to see the leaders, the top leaders on both sides, but certainly the Democrats who claim to be the leaders of people of color, need to have a larger conversation about this, because you can't leave this as a local story because it's not a local issue.
Lastly, most important thing for healing going forward, LZ?
Listening. You know, we talk a lot, but I think people, again, going back to the elected officials' leadership, needs to listen to the people a lot more, need to listen to the purpose of the meeting wasn't to throw slurs around. The purpose of the meeting wasn't to disparage, you know, LGBTQ people or anyone. The purpose of the meeting was about solidifying Latino power in the city.
At the expense of black power.
At the expense of black power. You can have an equitable display of power of the Latino population in this area without black erasure. And it's about having the ability to listen to one another to see how we achieve that.
Well said. LZ, Gustavo, thank you. Thank you for all your thoughtful work on this. Again, you can read their work at latimes.com. Up next, the Republican candidate for Attorney General in California, Nathan Hochman, is here. Stay with us. You're watching The Issue Is.
The fentanyl dealers on Main Street, the big pill pushers on Wall Street, we are holding them to account.
This week, Attorney General Rob Bonta talking about the fentanyl crisis. He's on the ballot, hoping to win his first statewide election. He's running against Republican Nathan Hochman, a former U.S. Assistant Attorney General. Nathan Hochman, welcome to The Issue Is. Good to have you back on the show. Good to have you in studio for the first time.
Great to be here.
Thanks for being here. Okay, so let's talk about you, because I don't think this race has gotten enough attention. Tell people a little bit, your quick bio, who you are, why you want to do this job.
Sure. Lifelong Californian. I was a federal prosecutor, went after narcotics traffickers and gang members. Then I was appointed by President Bush to run the U.S. Department of Justice's tax division as the Assistant Attorney General, went after tax cheats across the nation for over a year, then came back to Los Angeles, and I've been a defense attorney, a civil and appellate litigator, and the president of the LA City Ethics Commission.
And now you're running for Attorney General. You're running against Rob Bonta, who was appointed by Governor Newsom when Javier Becerra joined the administration. We've asked Rob Bonta to debate you on this show, the California statewide show, and he's denied our invitation, denied every invitation to do a TV debate with you. So we guess we got to do it this way. What do you think is the biggest single difference between you and Rob Bonta?
Sure, and this is the reason that Rob Bonta is scared to debate me. He doesn't want the facts to come out about the difference in our experience, nor the difference in our agendas. In fact, I told Rob Bonta if he wanted to debate in his kitchen after dinner with a Zoom camera running, I was game for it. But what he didn't want the voters to hear is that I have 30 years of criminal justice experience as a federal prosecutor, a U.S. Assistant Attorney General, and a defense attorney. And Rob Bonta had 0 years, and I mean 0 years of law enforcement experience before he got the job. Rob Bonta has enacted, along with his buddy and friend George Gascon in L.A., the most pro-criminal agenda of the California Attorney General's office in the last 50 years. And my agenda is partnering with the police, not just treating them as the enemy, funding police departments rather than defunding them, and ensuring that all crimes have proportionate consequences.
Let's talk now about George Gascon. He's a DA in L.A. County. There are other progressive prosecutors across the state as well who are allied with Rob Bonta. I know you say if you're in there, you're going to take a different approach. What specifically does that mean? The
California Attorney General is the chief law enforcement officer of the whole state. That means you're basically the boss of every district attorney, including George Gascon. And here's what I vow. On day one, if I'm the California Attorney General and I get voted in on November 8th, January 3rd I come in, the first week I'm coming into Los Angeles, and I will have the power to remove George Gascon from any case in which he is not doing his job, and I actually will exercise that power. Rob Bonta is a buddy and ally of George Gascon and will do nothing.
Another massive crisis California is dealing with right now is fentanyl and its impact in so many different ways. Rob Bonta talking about this week. Real succinctly, what's your plan when it comes to dealing with fentanyl as AG?
Certainly. For over a year, I have been begging Rob Bonta to finally do something on fentanyl. I'm glad he finally got around to a press conference to announce a future action on fentanyl. What I would do immediately is I would bring and lead, because I've actually led these task force myself, federal, state, local authorities going after fentanyl dealers and treating them as the murderers they are. This is not fentanyl overdose. This is fentanyl poisoning, because what they're doing is lacing counterfeit pills, Oxycontin, Xanax, Adderall. And people are getting these pills thinking that they're really an Oxycontin pill, taking them, and with 2 milligrams of fentanyl, you will die in 2 minutes. And couple that with a massive education effort, going after the middle schools and the high schools, the students and the parents, to basically tell them that fentanyl is not about getting high. Fentanyl is about actual death.
Lastly, let's have some fun. Last time you were on the show, we played this game called Personal Issues, where we learn your favorites. And you said that your favorite TV show of all time is The West Wing, which is my favorite TV show of all time. So we're going to totally geek out here. Who is your favorite West Wing character of all time?
All right, probably a tie between Martin Sheen, because he's the president, and I like Toby.
Toby Ziegler, who is the speechwriter and communications director. Because
they always gave him some great sort of philosophical lines when he was sort of stepping back and just sort of commenting with a kind of a wry, sarcastic wit. And then you had the president just, laying out such clear, compassionate, intelligent policies. I think what I loved about The West Wing is that it was an intelligent show. It said, actually, what I want voters to do in this race, look at the people running. Yeah. Look at their qualifications and experience. Look at their agenda, what they want to do for California. And I think if they use the same intelligence that we saw in The West Wing to actually cast their vote for Attorney General, Nathan Hochman will get that vote.
Although, unlike The West Wing, you want them to vote for the Republican.
Yes.
They never did that on that show. Yeah.
We'll switch to the moderate Republican, but yes.
Okay.
And I do recall a moderate Republican or two winning on some episodes of The West Wing.
By the way, also, you said that your favorite band was Bruce Springsteen, which is my favorite, Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. So we're going to throw way back for our music. We're going to have the E Street Shuffle, which is from the early days of Bruce Springsteen and the E Street Band. Let's bring that up in here. Up next, we're going to talk about our time with President Biden this week. But we go to break with the E Street Shuffle. Nathan Hochman, thank you. Good luck on the campaign trail. Next week, you're on a bus tour of the state, so you can go say hi to him.
I will.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Rock it out now. All right. Thank you very much, Nathan Hochman. Good stuff. This week, President Biden spent 3 days in California, including a stop in Irvine, where he talked about Medicare and Social Security. Also on hand, Congresswoman Katie Porter, who is locked in a tight re-election fight against Republican Scott Baugh. The president also stopping in West L.A. to give a boost to a woman who almost became his vice president.
Ladies and gentlemen, the President of the United States, accompanied by Representative Karen Bass.
President Joe Biden walking side by side with Congresswoman Karen Bass in the midst of her tight race for L.A. mayor. The president seeming confident about Bass beating businessman Rick Caruso, who became a Democrat earlier this year.
Mr. Mayor and soon to be Miss Mayor. Take out order for Bass.
The president taking the Congresswoman for quesadillas at Tacos 1986 in Westwood. When Biden first landed at LAX, he gave Bass quite the hug and kiss. What does this literal embrace from the president mean for you?
Well, what it means for me is that the president is the head of the Democratic Party, and he understands that there is only one Democrat in this race.
I also spoke with her opponent, Caruso, who in fact registered as a Democrat earlier this year. He described her as Ms. Mayor.
Yeah. Well, listen, he's announced his endorsement for her, so that's not a surprise, and they've known each other for a long, long time, and they've been in Washington together for a long, long time, so I think it's, just fine.
This visit coming on a week where leaked audio showed a racist conversation between L.A. city leaders. The president later calling on them to resign.
It's a great time for him to be here because he can also send a message of unity.
The president did not address the scandal during his remarks. Members of the media are being kept pretty far away from the president, not being given an opportunity to ask him any question. That didn't stop me from trying. Mr. President, any comments about what's happening in Los Angeles with the city council? Any comments? Main message to people of LA? No comment, I guess. Maybe next time. Vice President Harris, by the way, will be in L.A. on Monday and in San Francisco on Tuesday. And speaking of San Francisco, the Above Los Angeles Instagram account takes us above San Francisco. We'll be right back. Can you talk for a moment about what your kids mean to you?
Oh, now you're going to make me cry again. You know, I'll bundle it up with Tina. They're the dearest things in my life. They're the thing that I care about the most. They're the beginning and the end of my day.
Next week, a different, more personal side of Rick Caruso and an exclusive conversation with his kids in their first on-camera interview during the campaign. Plus, we return to the Community Coalition with Karen Bass, where we last visited with her in 2018 with John Lewis. Bass's family will open up on camera for the first time. We end this week with a tribute to an acting legend. We lost Dame Angela Lansbury this week, who had so many iconic roles. But my favorite was Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. A few years back, she performed her signature number live for the film's 25th anniversary.
Tale as old as time, song as old as rhyme, Beauty and the Beast.
Angela Lansbury is the winner of 6 Tonys, 6 Golden Globes, a Grammy, 3 Oscar nominations, and 18 Emmy nominations. She was 96. What a life well lived. We'll see you next week.